In this tutorial, we're going to discuss the timeline panel. Let's get to it. In After Effects, I already have a project. I'm just going to import a file. I'm going to choose one of these video files, and it really doesn't matter which one. And I'm going to create a composition with that. So in a previous video, we already saw how to do this. And I just want to show you the different aspects of the timeline panel. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. And here we have the name of the composition, which we have because it was created with the video clip. So it actually took its name. We have in here the timecode numbers. This one starts at 0. And if we move the playhead, you see how these numbers change. You can actually type whatever number you want in here. If you want to go to, say, 6 seconds, you could type a 600. And if you want to go, say, plus 1 second, you could do the plus sign and then 100. And that will take you 1 second to the right. And you could also scrub these values. So you can put your mouse cursor on top of the numbers. And once the mouse cursor changes into a little pointy finger with a double arrow, then you can just click and drag, and you can effectively go to any point in the timeline that you want. We have in here some icons. So this eyeball will make the clip visible and invisible. See it? And we're showing the transparency grid. I'm going to show black. So the next one is to mute the audio. And this doesn't have any audio. So let's just go ahead and bring in an audio file. I'm just going to choose Vivaldi's Winter. And I'll put it in the timeline. And notice that because this is an audio-only clip, it doesn't have the eyeball, but it has the little loudspeaker. So I can play it or mute it by clicking in here. If I have different video clips, so something with pixels that I can see, I can solo that by clicking on this little ping pong looking icon, right? So it's not really clicking on the icon, it's on the little checkbox under the icon, right? So that's a solo, and you can solo more than one layer. So if I have different layers and I'm just importing more layers here, and if I put those in the timeline, I can actually solo any of them. So I can solo this, for example, and that means I see only this clip, and I can solo more of the clips, so I can solo more than one. All of these checkboxes, you can click individually, like 1, 2, 3, right? Or you can simply click and drag to select them all or deselect them all. The next little icon that we have here is a little lock. You can lock a layer. And if you lock a layer, you won't be able to do anything with it. So in essence, when you lock a layer, you are protecting your work from anything that you might do to it. So it's really protecting you from you, right? So you can lock any layer. Then we have a label color that you can change. This label color is going to be reflected right here in the timeline with the same color. So if I click here and I choose, say, seafoam, let me choose a different color. I'm going to choose orange. You see that other displays, not just this label changes, but this color changes here, and also these control points here in the comp panel change as well to that orange. So you can use this for whatever is most convenient for you. Like if you duplicate a layer, and this is just Control-D, Command-D, and you have several duplicates of the same layer, but you want to differentiate one, then go ahead and change the color of that one. It looks different, and now you don't have to guess which one is the one that you wanted to separate from the rest. You know it's this one. All right, so these are just display things that are convenient for you. Then we have the layer number. Whichever layer is on top will be layer number 1, then 2, 3, and subsequently coming down. So from the top down, the top layer will always be layer 1, and this is called the layer index. right? Then after that, we have the source name. This is the same name that this particular clip is going to have in the project panel. And even though you can't change the source name here in the timeline, you can in the project panel, but you can't change it here in the timeline, you can actually change the layer name. So if you click on the word source name, you get then layer name, and that one you can change. So to rename pretty much anything in After Effects, select it, press enter or return, and then type in the new name. And there you go. You just renamed a layer. To commit to that, press enter or return again, and you got it. So you can rename layers, you can rename properties, you can rename effects, all the same way. Select it, press enter or return, and then type in the new name. After that, we have the switches. These switches, I'm going to go through some of them. In this first switch is the little shy guy, it's the shy layer. And I'm going to select all of these layers, press S for scale, and I'm going to make them all smaller. And now I'm just going to move them around here. And don't forget, I made a ton of duplicates, so a lot of these look the same, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. You know what? I'm going to make them even smaller so that we can see. There you go. That way we can see, really see all of them. So in here we have all of these layers that we can see in the comp panel, and we can see here in the timeline as well. If by any reason I don't want to see some of them in the comp panel, I will click on the eyeball and they disappear now from the comp panel. And all I did was click and drag, right? So that just makes the layer invisible. However, if I make them shy, so I made a whole bunch of them shy, not all, and then I turn it on here at the comp level, then the layers disappear from the timeline, but not from the composition. So they're still there, but I can't see them here in the timeline. Most templates that you download, you buy, will have a whole bunch of shy layers. So if you want to see and modify those layers, I'm not saying you should, I'm saying if you want to, you could just click here and then the layers will show. So this is the little shy guy. Then we have a little icon in here that if you hover above it, it says for comp layer collapse transformations, for vector layer continuously rasterize, and it's not available for any of my layers. That is because this is available only for pre-compositions and for vector layers. So a pre-comp or a nested composition, it's the same thing, is when you put a composition inside of another composition, right? And a vector layer is a layer that is not made out of pixels. It's made of mathematical equations, and then you can make it as big as you want or as small as you want, and it's not going to lose resolution because it's not made out of pixels, right? So there is an issue with that. So let me just select all of these guys and delete them. And I'm going to bring in an Illustrator file. So Illustrator files, let's say the doggy. They are vector. This is a vector layer that I'm just going to merge all the layers and I'm going to put it in the timeline. So this is a vector layer. In theory, I could make this as big as I want, and it's not going to look pixelated because it's not made out of pixels. Well, you can clearly see that that's not the case. This is looking very pixelated. The reason for that is how After Effects thinks. So first, let's part from the premise that monitors, which is what we're using in our computers, only display pixels. So there is no possible way for you to see a vector layer. You can't see it. All you can see is its pixel representation. In other words, its raster representation. So all apps that work with vector layers, and that's Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, etc., if you see it, you're seeing its raster representation. So it rasterizes the layer so that you can see it. Well, what After Effects does is that it rasterizes the layer at at its native scale. So at 100% scale. And when you scale it up, you are scaling the raster and not the vector. So you need to go to this switch in here and you need to say, hey, After Effects, I need you to scale the vector and then rasterize it again so I can see it. And that is known as continuously rasterized. So as soon as I turn that switch, and this is a switch, as soon as I turn it on, boom, there you go. That is now vector. So this looks like a little sunshine to me. And I always say, this little light of mine, almost always, let it shine. All right? So I usually do turn it on, and you can see that this is clearly now vector. I can make it as large as I want, and it won't matter. All right. So the other part of this switch is the collapse transformations. So let me give you just one example. We haven't talked about keyframes or anything like that, but it doesn't really matter because I'm just showing you what that switch is. All right, so I'm going to keyframe the position of this layer. And yes, I get it. I'm using shortcuts and all of that. This is not meant for you to follow. It's just meant for you to see what that switch does. So I'm going to keyframe position. I'm going to start here outside of the viewable area. I'm going to go all the way over here. I'm going to go down here and then up. And now, I don't know, here. And then finally, I'm going to end here in the middle, right? So if I play that, obviously, my clip, my little oval is going outside of the viewable area, so it will disappear. All right. I am now going to pre-compose this. So I'm going to put one composition inside of another. And I can easily do that by pre-composing it. That means right-click this one layer or several layers or all of the layers, whatever it is. Choose pre-compose. I'm going to move all attributes to the new composition. So I'm going to choose this new one. There is a lesson in pre-composing and nesting, so don't worry about it. Again, this is not meant for you to follow. This is meant for you to understand what the switch does. So I'm just going to call it pre-comp, and there you go. So all the keyframes disappear because now this is a composition inside of another. I'm going to press S for scale, and I'm going to make this smaller. And now, do you see how my layer disappears when it gets to the edge? So if I make this transparent like that, you can, well, transparent or not, you can clearly see that when it gets to the edge of the original composition, the oval disappears. Well, unless I say, hey, no, collapse transformations. This little light of mine, almost always, let it shine, and now it will not disappear. It's actually going outside of the boundaries of the original composition. All right, so that particular switch has two functions, continuously rasterize and also collapse transformations. The next switch, I'm going to go actually back to the black here, has to do with quality. We saw that in the previous movie. So we can have best, this is vector, so it's not going to matter. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to go to this. So I can render this at draft or best, bilinear or bicubic. Like I said in a previous video, we saw this. So I'm not going to worry too much about this switch. And if you want to see it not on the switch, select the layer and then go to Layer, Quality, and you will be able to get it from there. Okay, so best, draft, wireframe, bilinear, and bicubic. All right, the next one is the effects. If I had an effect applied to this layer, I could temporarily disable either the one effect or all of the effects by clicking here. So I have no effects applied, so let me just add one really quickly. Oh, channel combiner, whatever, right? I can now turn it on and off by clicking on this switch. I can also turn it on and off here in the Effect Controls panel. The difference is that this does all of the effects at the same time. All right, so pretty easy. The next one that we have here is frame blending. This is for slow-mo and all of that. We're going to talk about this when we talk about slow-mo and time remapping. This is at a later movie. The next one is motion blur. So if I go back to my pre-comp. In other words, to that ball that I have, right? And I turn motion blur on. Do you see how motion blur is now turned on? I need to make sure that it's turned on here at the layer level and also at the composition level. This one is for adjustment layers. There is a lesson only on adjustment layers, so I'm not going to go over that right now. And this one is going to make the layer 3D. All right, so if I click here, now it doesn't make the layer really 3D, even though that's what I just said. It actually lets me change things in 3D space. So I will be able to rotate this in 3D space. All right, so then there is a column from parenting and link. There's a lesson on parenting, so I'm not going to go over that now. If I right-click any of these column headers, I can now choose which columns I see, and there is a column for comment, for modes, as in blending modes. There is one for keys, for render time, in, out, duration, and stretch. And we're going to go through some of those throughout this series on basic training for After Effects. Not necessarily all. I don't think it's necessary to go through all of them. Here at the bottom, we have some icons that we should talk about. Let me start with this one, which is the display of the timeline. These are, see, the little mountains, the big mountains. I can zoom my display in and out of the timeline by using this little slider. I can also use the plus and minus keys on my main keyboard. I can use this bar here. This is not the work area bar. This is like a zoom bar, right? And I can go even to different parts of my composition without moving the playhead. So this relates to this one down here. And so I can zoom in and out. I can also click on the little mountains. I can click on the big mountains, you know. The easiest way I find is just pressing the plus and the minus keys on my main keyboard. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. So here we go. From the left, you can expand or collapse the layer switches panel. See it? If you click here, you don't see the switches anymore. But hey, you know, you don't necessarily have to go here. You could also right click, you go to columns, and then turn the switches on. So there's different ways for you to do this. The next one is the transfer control. So these are the modes. So notice that if I click on this again to disable it, there is a button here that says toggle switches/modes. And now the switches will replace the modes and vice versa whenever I click here. So because of real estate, I don't like showing both of them at the same time unless I need to, right? And if I need to, then I definitely can. But most of the time, I don't need to see both of them at the same time. So I just use this button for toggle switches and modes. Okay, switches, modes. All right, so here we go. The next one here is for the in-out duration and switches panel. In, out, duration, and stretch panel. So I can make this slow-mo and all of that. I can stretch it, I can make it fast, I can make it slow, but there is a lesson on duration and speed and all of that, so I'm not going to go over that right now. I'm just showing you where things are pretty much here in the timeline. And then finally, I have this one, which is collapse the render time panel. Render time. So this is just an approximate on how long it will take for something to render. And right now you see that it's like nothingness because I'm doing nothing, right? I'm just like moving a little oval on the screen. So it's not too bad. All right, so I'm just going to leave all of these at default. But I just want you to know that you can also look for things. There's a little search bar here. You can also click here and you can look for specific things. In other words, position, rotation, and scale. See, this gives me now the position, the rotation, and scale of everything in the timeline. And of course, I only have one layer, so it's just giving me those things from the one layer that I have. So I can actually make things visible and invisible. And if you find yourself that you keyframed something and now you can't see it, it's a good idea to just look at this. And if there's anything written here, just exit out so that you're not filtering any of the results that you might get otherwise. There's going to be a lesson only on markers, so I'm not going to go over timeline markers or layer markers or anything like that. I just want to show you that there is a display here. There's a time ruler where you can see the timecode numbers. If you don't want to see the timecode numbers, you can control or command a click here, and now the display changes to frames. You can again command or control click on those numbers there, and now you're seeing the timecode again. All right, so this is just a very quick overview of the timeline, so that if you ever wondered what a little icon did or whatever, now you know. And this brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.